Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Simon, and I'm a student from Microverse from India. And today I'm hosting this webinar with my co-host, Clifton, from England. And we will, of course, give you a short background on Microverse, and later we will introduce you to our speaker today. So, yeah, Clifton, you can take the stage.
Uh, Thanks, Simon. Hey, James. Hi,
How's it?
everyone. Thanks for taking time out to make out this webinar. Just a brief background for students, well, prospective students joining us for the first time. Microverse is a program for remote software developers that is completely free until you get a job. So you learn HTML and CSS, Ruby on Rails, Ruby, JavaScript, React, through pair programming with a partner for about 8 hours a day. Um, every week or ever so often, we have students hosting webinars like this with speakers like James to help give a background on what they do, just to help inspire our students as well. And before these webinars were just private for just webinar Microverse students, but since then they've been open now to the general public to help inspire more people into the software development field. Well, I'll leave it at that. The boring stuff. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you so much. So yeah, today we have James with us, and of course, first of all, I would love to thank James for taking the time to do this lunch and learn. It really means a lot to us, and I'll turn over to you in a minute. But first, I would like to remind the students that you have a Q&A section there on the panel on the right, and please take your time to write questions that you might have for James, and you will get these questions to him at the end of the webinar. So yes, yeah. So all right, Clifton, you can go ahead, please.
Oh, is that my cue? I'm good.
It's Clifton's
Oh,
turn to do
Kristen.
something.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Actually, it's over to you. Over to you, James. Take it
Okay.
away.
All right. Thanks for that overhead. Uh, yeah. So thank you for having me. I feel pretty honored to be a guest speaker in Microverse. So I've known Simon for a few years, and so I'm really proud of Simon to be a part of Microverse. He tells me a lot about how things are, and I think it's a really incredible program. Like at work, I even talked to like a friend about uh, about how Microverse does things, where like they don't even ask you to pay any money up front, but you pay back in 50% of your income, and she thought that was like, wow, that's amazing. Like I wish schools were like that right now. So this is a really big bang for the buck. Um, so for I guess for the guest speaking session, I'm probably not going to speak too much. I want to make a lot of time for Q&A, so you guys can all like ask me any questions, and I feel that might be a more interesting way to have a dialogue here. But a little bit about me. So I'm in Austin, Texas, in the United States, and yeah, thanks, Cyrus. Um, so I'm in the Austin, Texas, in the United States. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. My parents are immigrants uh, from China, and then so I'm a first generation born U.S. citizen. Um, and then so I graduated in Georgia Institute of Technology, and then after I graduated in 2013, I came to uh, uh, to Austin, where I started work at IBM. Um, and so I was at IBM for 5 years, and then at Indeed, I just recently joined like 2 years ago. So this is where I'm at. So you can actually see that this is the Indeed office right here. I'm in the office right now. I'm supposed to be working, but I'm talking to you guys. So, but yeah. So my role is called it's called design engineer. If I go to other companies, I'm basically called a front end developer or a front end engineer, and that's kind of the yeah, right. The office is really really good. The kind the I would say this, right, like in my career, when I first started at IBM, I started off as a design developer. That was my role title. But that didn't really last very long because 1 year afterwards they changed the title to CSS stuff. Basically, they changed the title to front end developer, front end engineer. So I became a front end developer. And this was and the one distinction is that this was I started off in the design organization, right? And I started building UI that way. But then 3 years later, I switched uh, to the engineering org, and basically I'm doing the same stuff, but I'm on the engineering team this time. So a very different group of people, but same work. And so now I'm at the other phase where I'm back in the design organization at Indeed, and but again, doing the same thing for the most part. So, um, so yeah, I'll answer some questions in a bit. I'm going to like give me a few minutes here. Uh, so in the design organization, so my role used to be called like design technology. Then it got changed to UX developer, and the reason we changed it to UX developer was because we couldn't like our organization apparently was not able to use the title engineer. This is an engineering company, right? So I think the point that I want to get at with this is just that titles are very superficial. Um, like when people, because I look at Microverse, I look at you guys. You guys are, you're learning CSS, you're learning all these skills, Ruby on Rails, and all this stuff. So people are going to want to put you in a box, right? Because it's kind of convenient, right? When you have the design label or the front end label, it's really easy to box people in that way. And I've talked to Simon, I've talked to multiple people. What I come to notice is that most of you guys probably don't like to be put in boxes, and that's what labels can do. So what's really important is not the labels, but the skills that you come along with it. That you develop because because that's like really what's the word? Okay, all right. Ashok, you're raising your hand. What's up? Oh, hello. Okay.
It's fine, James. Just carry it.
Oh, is that you? Wait, how does this work?
It's
You can
Clifton
just
here. You
carry
can
on,
just
James. It's
carry
all
on.
right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll carry on. Let's see. Right. Um, so the thing is, like I feel the most important thing is really just getting the right experiences and getting the right skills, as opposed to trying to I want to be a I want to be a senior level whatever developer, um, uh, when you don't really when it's too early to be a senior developer. You really want to go at your own pace. You don't want to compare yourself to other people of the same titles, because that's how imposter syndrome can really spur, and that is a real problem, and it's also really superficial actually. So yeah. So let's see. Um, yeah, right. Like I think what's really great about not being in boxes is that you can really dabble in other skill sets, right? You can be both a designer and a developer. You can do these things, and because like right now in the tech industry, I think it's like it's trying to move away from the boxes, but right now there's like a kind of a stigma where it's like, oh, I'm a user researcher, so I don't really touch this thing, or I don't I don't do anything outside of my box. Um, so yeah, let's see. Uh, let's see. What's a good thing? Okay. Well, for now, I'd say yeah, I think it would be good to start doing like Q&A. So if anyone has any like questions about anything technical,
Hi,
career,
James.
hey,
Clifton here.
yo,
Hi. Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks a lot for the much you've shared so far. It's very inspiring and for taking the time out to share your story. What you said, especially about the being flexible and not being put into boxes, I think that's really helpful. I noticed you're about to go into the Q&A and get on the questions, but I'm just going to select a few of the questions now to put to you as well from the Q&A, so you don't have to worry about that.
okay, nice, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. The first one is from Isyaka. It says, I don't have any idea on UI design. Can I still work as a front-end developer?
Uh, that will be really hard. Yeah. Um, I would say like if you have the drive to be a UI designer or a UI developer or whatever, then you you can do it. You know, we the great thing about the 21st century is that if you want to do something, then you can really go for it. You know what I mean? Now, as far as the you said UI designer, was that right? UI
Yeah,
designer.
UI. Yeah.
UI designer, but you don't have front end skills. Is
No,
that?
becoming a front end developer without having the UI skills.
Oh, yeah, of course. Lots of front end developers are like that. Here's the thing about front end developers is that it's a very diverse discipline, a very mixed bag because you have like engineers or computer science or really highly technical full stack guys who want to do front end. You also have designers and people who want to do front end. You also have like some like product like guys who are non-technical who said they would like to be front end. And so there's really like front end is a discipline that is comes in a lot of variety. Some front end developers are really strong with doing CSS, doing like building really beautiful layouts, and other people are really good at doing the maintainability of like the components and the reusability and think through that. Um, so I would be like that would be one of my strong areas in that. And then of course others are like really good at thinking about the performance of things, or they really like doing this stuff. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. We have another question, interesting one from Miguel, and it says, "What kind of stuff do you do on a day-to-day?"
yeah. So right now I work on a lot of web applications. I do a lot of React JS. Um, but then when I'm not doing that, I do like to just like hang out with my teammates, and really try to um, really try to like connect with other people, because that's so I think like some engineers go really hard on the skills, but they kind of they kind of don't know how to talk to people. So so it's really important to talk to people, get to know other people's perspectives, right? And also some things that are easy for other people, or some things that are hard for you is easy for others. So
Yeah. Speaking of teams, the dynamics in your team. There's a question from Jose saying, "What are the dynamics like when it comes to working with a backend team?"
it's the is this like from a front end developer, or
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what they're alluding to. As a front end developer, what are the dynamics like working with a backend team?
all right, not a bad question, Jose. The um, So for the as a front end developer, when you're working with a backend team, a lot of times in the technical sense, you're uh, like they build the APIs and you build the UI, right? And these tasks can happen asynchronously. Um, I think the like when you actually like get to know them though, and like really hang out with other backend guys, whatever. Backend guys really hate CSS. They don't want to do that at all. So it's funny because when I left IBM, I was the only guy on my team who knew how to do CSS. So they just gave me all the CSS tickets in my last weeks there, because like they spent hours trying to figure that stuff out. It's hard. So um, yeah. Let's see, like other dynamics. I would say uh, 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 so yeah, I think we can probably move on to the next question. I'm running a little cold.
Okay. I see you're running cold there. Yeah, there's a question from Jalil asking, in brief, what is the difference between UI and UX?
Right. UI is like the the shapes and the colors on the page, the interactions, but UX is a lot more about the um, like from the user's point of view. What is he thinking? What does he care about? It's more strategic. It's more you can also say psychological, because some of these guys are psychology majors. Uh, but it's so UX is very much anyone has an opinion about user experience, right? Like the door handle is is vertical when it should be horizontal because I'm trying to push it, right? So and that's from Design of Everyday Things, which is a pretty good user experience book. The but yeah, UX is UX is also less concrete than UI. UI, everyone knows what UI is because you can see it, you can see the tangibles, but UX is not very tangible. And then it's also, so it's really hard to, well, it's really hard to like understand, like from an outsider who doesn't know anything about design, you try to explain them UX, they're, like they're not going to get it, right? Um, but UX is very. But what I'll say this though, like UX, like when you have a really good UX designer on your team, like you can really feel the difference. Like you can really feel the impact, how much better the product you're making is, and how much thought is put into the building the UI. So
Oh, great. Well, that's really interesting.
yeah.
I think there's another question from Sebastian. I think you've already touched on your path to becoming a front-end developer, but I think they're also more keen on knowing about your online presence or how your portfolio to enter Indeed.
Uh, I'll be perfectly honest. My online presence is not very strong. I don't use a Twitter account. I don't, and I haven't touched my portfolio site in years. So, um, and uh, the um, yeah, like it's because like the thing is like my background, I work in big companies a lot, which I do feel is like it's got a different there's like a different set of values almost compared to like a small company or a startup or a remote position. It's so it's like I'd say there's like less agility in a sense. Um, so long story short, basically I'm just being lazy about that. but but I do have a LinkedIn. I do keep that up to date. LinkedIn is like a great way to remain connected with people you've met. Um, and then also, so talking about portfolio and how I got into Indeed, right? What was that process
Yeah,
like?
yeah, yeah.
Um, I would say the way I was hired, I very much enjoyed the hiring process. It's very different than other hiring processes. Uh, in my hiring process, they asked me to build a game. It was a uh, take home coding test. They don't really they don't really have like a set like they don't ask you to do it in 2 hours. They just do it whenever you get it done. And then they also keep the requirements a little open ended so that you can take your own spin on how you want to build this game. It's like a dot game, right? Um, because I think what my organization really values a lot is culture fit. They want to see like what kind of personality you are, like what kind of front end developer are you. They want to see like how you tackle problems, and they also, once you build the game, you go into the interview, and they have something to talk about, and they're like, "Oh, I noticed you did it this way. I thought that was really interesting." And tell me more about your thought process on that, right? So uh, so I was very fortunate to have that kind of test. I think they made the right decision to hire me. But I got to see the other hires in their coding tests. It's everyone's very unique, so I thought it was great. I've been to other coding tests where they just asked me, how do you reverse a string, right? How do you, do this? What's Ajax? And just all this stuff. And I'm like, you can hire other people to do this. There's a lot more people in the market that will get what you want, right? Um, so that's not really what I'm interested in. I feel like you may be handicapped. You may be losing out like the other 70% of my value. So um, uh, so yeah, it's if you can get into a company that's like the right fit, even if it's like maybe it doesn't pay as much or whatever, I think it's worth it. um, I think like it feels really good to be in your natural fit. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, just bombarding you with all these questions. We have quite a few more. I hope you're prepared.
Okay. All right.
There is a question from Allborn asking what are some of the best practices that you would recommend for front end development?
Best practices for front end development. Which are we talking about, like languages or just?
Well, if
We can talk about this all day. So,
I probably assume they're asking maybe your best practices for, I think, general things you use in front end development, if I
that
should interpret it that way.
okay, that's a really good question and interpretation. My best practice is I value a lot of things. I value maintainability a lot. I value like repeatable solutions, reusable code, reusable patterns. Um, but at the same time, uh, like don't overdo it either. So um, I think the if there's one quality that I value the most, it's adaptability, because you never know what kind of design your designer is going to give you if you're working with a designer. Um, you also never know how one feature that was initially built in the start can transition into this thing that's going to like scale like crazy. And so you always want to stay on your toes, kind of like be wary of like the anti patterns. It's I think it's always important to try to write your code in a way that is going to help you tomorrow. That's the best way I can describe it. Because like sometimes you work on a project that has like 10 years of technical debt, right? It's not reasonable to do a total rehaul, right? Because that could take months, and that's not um, that's not feasible most of the time. So you kind of have to roll with that, roll with the technical debt. So so people say technical debt is bad, and yet you have to live with it. So how do you live with it? You have to kind of like you have to find ways to adapt in that kind of environment, right? Like you have to not view it like the game is different. You got to view it as uh, um, like if everything around you is like terrible, then yeah, it's going to be terrible. But if you change the way you see it, it may not be so bad. So
Yeah, yeah, that's great. There's a question from Julio um, asking about your learning right now. Is it more geared towards what you're using daily in work, or is it just geared towards career development generally?
can I answer the Cyrus's question right here?
Cyrus,
Yeah, real quick. Then we'll go back to that one.
is that in the main chat? Where
Yeah.
is that?
So he says, what are your thoughts on speed and productivity? Your experience on meeting deadlines, giving a scenario where you weren't able to meet deadlines, and what was the end results? Have you ran into work conflicts? If so, how do you manage that particular situation? That is a fantastic question, because that's kind of like the story of our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um, let's see. Okay, so One of my worst moments that I've experienced was when I was on the design team. Right, I worked with a couple of designers, and they spent way too much time doing their design, and I only had a week left to do my thing. Right, and then it's really terrible because we're not going to deliver. I'm under a lot of pressure, and uh, and then when we do not deliver, someone's going to get the blame, right? So who's going to get the blame? I don't like, it's a hot potato at that point. So um, so like this stuff is really this is why soft skills are really really important, not just hard skills. At that time, I was very hard skill heavy. And I didn't know how to handle the situation. I didn't know how to like, kind of push back, like and say like I need the design to be locked down here, or else I'm only going to have this much time to do it, right? I didn't know how to say that. So um, like yeah, it's really important to say that. It's really important to communicate your needs so that people can work with you easier too. Um, but let's say the situation went south, as mine did. um, uh, well, let's see. Well, I would say if you have the patience for it, definitely it's good to try to try to work things out, try to be really forgiving, right? But again, it's like it can be it can just not be worth it. Like you might as well just like get out and try a different team or something, or find a way to exit, because this is just not going to work. I don't want to deal with this stress for the next 6 months, right? So which is, and that's the route I took, by the way. So so uh, so yeah, I mean it happens, but I did learn a lot from it, and if it were to happen again, I know how to deal with it better, more gracefully. So um, then thoughts on speed and productivity, right? This is the ongoing question in at Indeed, or just everywhere, right? Uh, because if you work on these teams, you have product managers that just keep wanting feature, right? And then you don't have time to address any of the technical debt. So until a technical debt just becomes a lost cause, right? And that's definitely not what teams want, but it's what is acceptable, which really should not be. Um, See, the thing is, when you're addressing technical debt, when you want to achieve both speed and productivity, like speed and quality, I should say, the only way to get there, you're not going to have one or the other in the beginning. But if you make the investments to, do the work, do the brick work, then you really will achieve both speed and quality at the same time. And that's the productivity that is going to last for a long time, right? That's how you can like just do a few lines of code fixes and then go back home and take a nap or something. So, well, until they ask you to do more stuff. But yeah, um, uh,
That's great to hear. Sorry, there's a question here from Stefan. Without putting you at risk of, well, revealing trade secrets or something, he's asking, can you talk about some of the projects that you work on? What do you actually build?
yeah. So at Indeed, I work on internal platform, uh, which is basically building web tools to help the people who are building customer-facing applications. I'm sure you know, like the Indeed.com website. Um, the thing about the Indeed.com website, they have a very large team. This is the product that makes the money with the ad revenue, right? And so they don't want to they don't want to they don't want to change that too much. The On the other hand, so it's very a test heavy environment. It's very low risk. Like they don't want to take too many risks, right? But at internal platform, the trade off with me and my team is that we don't uh, so like the trade off with my team is that we don't do customer facing stuff. So the stuff we do is definitely less risky, and we can also have more flexibility, which is something I like to do. So as for what kind of stuff I've been working on, I've been helping with a tool at Indeed called IQL, which is basically like a Google search for data sets, right? It's a very I think it's one of the most powerful tools that we have here. Like, I can go through the web application and I can search for our beer tap usage downstairs. You know, like we have because we're a very data driven company. We have data on everything, and so that's the most important thing for our company. Most important resource. Other things are also I'm also like trying to work on hackathon projects. I really want to build a tool that can uh, uh, graph our organization, like the people, the teams, who's working on what, that kind of stuff. Um, and then also the one of the big projects I worked on was the design system project at Indeed. That's actually what I was originally hired for, was to build design system components for Indeed. Um, that was a very challenging project, I'll say the least. But uh, I did work on some components. In fact, I can probably I can screen share, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay,
Go
all
ahead.
right, let's do it. Alrighty. Uh, nope. Let's see. Ooh. Okay. Alrighty. Um, by the way, this is my design engineering dashboard. So this is a collection of all the little prototypes that um, all our design engineers built. The one that I want to show is down here somewhere. Yes. All right, cool. For about like 3 weeks, I worked on a pagination component, right? Um, this is purely the component, but there's a lot that went into this. You can see the interactions, the state logic. I laid out all these to look at all the different combinations and edge cases of a pagination component. So you can see, right, like, when it's less than 7 pages, it's just going to display numbers. But as soon as you hit, you know, more than seven or more pages, then you start introducing the ellipses. Um, and then just trying out all the different states, trying out like what happens when the page number is huge like that. It looks like that. So uh, let's see. Oh yeah, there's this too. So yeah, the story behind this, right? some of the things that I did when I worked on this, I had I had design specs from the designer who did this, basically did this design, and I needed to implement the design in the code, and I use React.js for this. But when I did that, I also needed to think about like what kind of inputs that this component needs, right? Like what's the right properties that the pagination component can have, and how do I abstract the components in a way that makes each part reusable? So I think I can show something pretty cool here. Let's go here. Pagination. Sorry, tech. Here. Tech. Oh crap. Was it static? No. Okay. Okay. I wanted to show the code, but I can sort of walk through the high level. But basically, I built a component a component called pagination. Um, it's a pagination slot. So basically, this page number, this arrow, they're all using the same component, right? Like they're all the same component. The only difference is like a few properties. Yeah, and then the overall pagination component doesn't know only is only responsible for the placement of the pages and the arrows. It doesn't know what the pages and the arrows are actually doing though. So you kind of have that model. So yeah, if anyone's like curious about learning more about this, you can always like feel free to message me and schedule some time to walk through. But it's very it would be like very architectural heavy. How do I stop sharing? Okay.
Just right there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's some amazing stuff there. I think we have just about enough time to fit in maybe two more questions. Let's see. Here's one. I would go back to this question from Julio. He was asking like, what are you still learning? Is it more geared towards what you use daily for work, or just career development? Is that what you're focused on your learning right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. What am I learning? Oh, can you mute? There's a little echo.
Uh,
Okay. Okay. All right. Real quick. What am I learning? I'm learning a lot more leadership skills right now. Actually, I'm actually. I feel like I'm transitioning away from more technical um, to more like a mentorship kind of role, to more of like a team, like helping my teammates basically become the new me, right? And learn like all the things that I know. And then also, I do like to plan, like architect things. I think I'm getting much better at that. But I'm really trying to be better at being at the seat of the table. And because I think, like at this point in my career, I feel like people really value my input and my ideas. So I feel pretty good about that. Um, and then, okay, I'm gonna go through a bunch of questions. What's the most difficult you've ever worked with on as a, what did it teach you? Most difficult problem. That's a hard question to answer because every problem is different. It's got its own unique challenges. Um, but I would say the most difficult problem. The pagination was one of those difficult problems. I would say, like I have to figure out accessibility and stuff too. So let's see, what's the attention?
Hey James, it's Simon here.
Hey Simon.
We have about 10 minutes more for this Q&A,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if we can extend it beyond that, but we'll try to keep it short, so maybe keep your answers a bit shorter. But I know there are a lot of amazing questions that you guys are asking, but we won't have the time. Maybe we can schedule another Q&A session, but for
Okay.
now, yeah, maybe, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sure.
So I think Clifton had a couple questions that I guess were interesting that you thought were cool. Like what are you still learning on a daily basis?
Right, Clifton.
Yeah,
I'll,
I think
he's
that's a good
already he's
question.
already touched on that.
All right, right. Okay.
I'll,
Yeah.
what about Ramsey's question? Because he's really begging here.
Yeah.
I think that's the one about what's the most difficult
Oh,
problem you've solved. Here's a question from Ara, and she's asking, what do you need to know to be a front-end developer in terms of programming languages and design skills? I think she means the whole shebang.
hmm. The most important one is CSS if you want to do design and programming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, without question, CSS. And then if you can also work your way towards like any of the React, like the JavaScript frameworks, that would be great. But I know that can be challenging for some people. So
Oh, that's
uh,
great. That's great.
okay, talk about soft skills. Yeah, they're important, right? Yeah, they're okay. All right. Yeah, soft skills is it's important, but I would say it's also not everything. You need a balance of both hard skills and soft skills in order to be like the most desirable person in your company. Um, you need like you need to at least know the basics of like how to work with other people. You want to, because even when you're engineering or working on a project, that's collaboration right there, right? So you need to know how to talk to certain people. You need also not need to know how to not be as offended, because it's probably not as bad as you think it is, right? And um, and uh, but again, this is problems that are hard for everybody. It's a constant struggle. From my team is still figuring that out. um, the all the CEOs and all the leadership is also figuring that out. Everyone's figuring this out. So it's the trying to figure out that's really important here. Um, how to compete with someone who goes to college for the same sit in the technical sense as a self-made engineer. Um, you really want to highlight your strengths, right? Because if you're trying to get better at C sharp or C++ against someone who has been doing that for years, you're going to lose. So you can't compete against him purely on that department. And this is also where soft skills comes in too, because sometimes the guy who knows the technical doesn't know how to work with people. And so the person who wants to hire someone, they need to work with someone who they can work with, right? So like always improve on skills, but definitely stick to your strengths. Um, they're Your strengths are can be more surprising than you think. So uh,
Um, uh, James, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna have to just interrupt because of time. So maybe we could just keep it to maybe the last two questions.
All right.
There's this one here from Kings saying, how does the coding interview for front end developers in the tech industry look like? As in, how technical is it?
Um, Depends on who you talk to, because like mine was actually not that technical compared to other places. Mine was actually more of like a personality test. Um, yeah, it really is. And I personally I think those are better. So, but you can't always find those, right? So technical skills front end is very important. There's also like a very high bar in some places for front end skills, but there's also places where they don't like some companies they don't need the best of the best, right? They just need someone who can do UI and do design, like can do tech, can like code the thing and also talk design, and that's a really that's a strength in and of itself, is like being able to walk in between the lines. So
Yeah. I think it's fitting that we should end on this question. It says what's the it's from Jesus. It says, what's the best advice you can give to us? Um, I think I'm
okay.
mixing up the question. Yeah, what's the best advice you can give to us to get a job as a front end dev?
All right. Clearly, my previous advices were not good enough. So, so what's
in
the
like
what?
in a nutshell, like as a summary.
Uh, I think this one goes beyond front end. I would say the best advice um, is to don't reject what you're given. You know what I mean? Um, Not saying don't reject toxic stuff, because yeah, you want to get away from those, but because actually, pretty much all the time the answer is right in front of you, right? The thing that you need to do to get to the next thing you need is right in front of you. It's hard to notice that, and it's hard to realize that, but being open to everything that comes your way, I think is, in my opinion, is the most important thing.
That's great. That's great. Well, sorry guys, we have to leave it here. You've asked some amazing questions, but we just don't have the time to go through all of them. Thank you, James. Thanks for taking the time to answer all those questions. Simon, over to you. Are you there?
Yes, I am here. Hmm. Right. Where am I?
Oh, contact info. How do we share
Hi
contact info?
guys.
Yo,
Sorry.
oh, someone asked contact
Yes.
info.
Mm, it's
I
up to you if you want to your email or.
can I just like talk to Gregory, and he can just disseminate? Okay, yeah, cool. Um,
Yeah, we can do that later.
okay, all right,
Um,
yeah.
all right. I do have one question though from my side.
Oh, okay, one more.
I'll take advantage of being the host. Um, yeah. Would you ever consider being a remote developer in this day and age?
Man, you asked me
Leave
that.
your
I'm like,
fancy office job.
okay.
I know.
Um, a remote developer, would I consider it? Yeah, I would consider it. Um, yeah, because it's I think it's really nice to go travel and like do your thing, and then work at a company that has that acceptable, right? Um, because what's also great about remote development is that you get to work with global, teammates, right? So, when you work globally, it's like the timelines, like the 8 to 5 schedule kind of doesn't matter whatsoever, right? Because like one guy's already working at, their morning time, and another guy's working at their morning time, or Simon could be pulling an all-nighter for the rest of the next 6 months, so 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 yeah, I think that's yeah, remote development is I think is the future. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, James, for sharing all that amazing information. Um, so now this is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Clifton for helping me host this.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
yeah, James, if any last parting words, I guess not a parting words, yeah, but the
Uh,
last thing you want to say to
yeah.
students.
This is the last thing, right? Oh yeah. Okay. So Swahili, Asante. Ah, that's cool. Uh, uh, parting words.
I think James doesn't want to leave yet.
Oh, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here, man. End of the day. But yeah, just have a good time. Like, don't worry about like the stressors that much. Like, don't take them too seriously. Um, you know, really just right, like just have a good time. Um, get to know people, and then stay humble. Uh, be arrogant.
All
Do I
right.
still do bootstrap? No. It's been
uh,
a while.
James, if
All
you would be
right.
so kind as to leave maybe your contacts, I don't know, it's up to you. LinkedIn, Twitter, any of
I,
those, maybe in the chat because people are going mad here.
All right, fine. All right, fine. Here,
big
I'll just do it right
big
here.
fans.
Yeah. All right. That's my email. Feel free to contact me. I probably won't answer all of you if like hundreds of you come at me. but, but
Get
yeah, no,
so much spam.
I love doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, thanks. No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this too. So yeah,
Thanks.
All right.
come
Thanks so
come to
much, guys.
come to Austin. I need roommates too. So okay,
All right.
okay. I'm done. I'm done. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys, for showing up this week. We're gonna go. Please join us for the next webinar, which I think next week. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks
All right.
everyone for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, James.